Plagiarism, the most dreaded word for any PhD or master students or even a researcher who's starting out. So in this video I want to first briefly go over what plagiarism is and give you my top tips how to avoid plagiarism. So let's get started. Before we dive right into it and before I give you my top tips how you can avoid plagiarism, then hit that subscribe button right below this video, and there is also a little bell button so you don't miss future videos that I post. And if you're new here, my name is Marek Kiczkowiak and I run academicenglishnow.com, where I help university students and researchers write better theses and papers. First of all, what is plagiarism? Cambridge Dictionary defines plagiarism as the process or practice of using another person's ideas or works and pretending that this work or these ideas are your own. Often you might be thinking of plagiarism as copying people's words directly, but that's not the only way, obviously, that you can plagiarize something. For example, you can use other people's ideas without referencing them, and this would be plagiarism. You could, as I said, use the exact words of someone and do not provide quotation marks or a reference, and this would be plagiarism as well. You could also use somebody else's theories or concepts that they invented without reference to them. You could use also somebody else's results without a reference, and this would be plagiarism. So now, how would you avoid it? What are some of the best tips to avoid committing plagiarism when you're writing your thesis or paper? First of all, as I already mentioned when going over the definition of plagiarism, always add a reference when you're using someone else's ideas, because you need to tell us where these ideas come from, and even if you're paraphrasing them, even if you're using your own words, you still need to add a reference to that paper, book or thesis where these ideas come from. Always add quotation marks when you're using the exact words of another person. Depending on the referencing style that you're using, you'll probably also have to add the page number to tell us exactly which page these particular words came from. I mentioned paraphrasing here, which refers to kind of changing the ideas of another person, the words of another person, into your own words. But one of the biggest mistakes that you can make when paraphrasing that will actually lead to plagiarism is that you simply change a couple of words here and there. You use a few synonyms, but you leave the structure of the paragraph or the structure of the sentences exactly the same. This can very easily lead to plagiarism. So don't do that. Don't just change a few words here and there and leave everything else intact. Rewrite the whole sentence or the paragraph that you're using. Also, in order to avoid plagiarism when paraphrasing from another article or book, it's really good to use your own notes. So for example, imagine you're reading a paper, right? And then you're taking notes somewhere on a piece of paper or on your laptop. Then close that paper that you've read and use these notes to write what those other researchers have written. By doing this, you're less likely to commit plagiarism because you're not reading off that academic paper, but you're reading from your own words already, because once you've been taking your notes, you've kind of processed what you've read and put it down on paper, and now you just need to put those notes in a more academic language. And the last tip is also connected to this. First, try to read that particular text or paragraph or sentence that you're trying to paraphrase a couple of times to make sure that you really understand what the writer is saying. Because once you've done it, once you really know what the main results of the particular study are, what the main conclusions are, how the study was conducted, then you don't need that paper anymore. You don't need to be looking at it. You can simply use your own words and your memory to write down and avoid committing plagiarism. Obviously, it's always good practice, especially if you're writing something that's perhaps a little bit tricky or has some exact numbers in it, to check later on against that paper to make sure you haven't made a mistake. But definitely use your own notes and try to use your memory as well to make sure that you've read the paper a couple of times, or the extract a couple of times, and you understand it. Now, the last tip that I want to give you, once you've done everything that I've mentioned here, you could also use software to check against, to check if you've committed plagiarism. That's kind of the last resort. I think first you want to go through all these tips that I gave you here, and if you're still not sure, if you're still worried, then try to resort to one of these programs that allows you to check if you've committed plagiarism. To be honest with you, I've never ever used any of them in my academic career as an academic researcher. I think that if you follow the tips, you're not going to commit plagiarism. But I understand that you might be really worried about it, so there are software that allow you to check. One of them is Scribbr, so that's S-C-R-I-B-B-R, and I posted the link to it right below the video. Another one is Qtext. They've got a free plan for you, which for most purposes I think you will be fine with. You don't need to get a paid plan, and I posted the link to it as well. Most universities will use Turnitin software, so you could potentially ask your supervisor to create an extra Turnitin assignment for you, and then you could upload a part of your text into that assignment to check for plagiarism. So in this video, I explained what plagiarism is, and remember, it doesn't just refer to copying the exact words of someone. Also, taking somebody else's ideas without referencing is also plagiarism. And then I gave you my top tips how you can avoid plagiarism to make sure that you write a good thesis. If you want more tips like that, then definitely give this channel a follow and join my 5-day instant better academic writing challenge, when in just 10 minutes a day for the next 5 days you can really improve your academic writing, and the link is right below this video.